there were some trades. You know, people are raving about how the Patriots stayed patient and waited for Mac Jones to fall to them, just like they always knew he would. People are complaining about the Raiders pick because they do every single year because it's always a questionable pick. They picked Alex Leatherwood, who's a very good offensive lineman from Alabama, but he's not great. I've watched the kid play. He was a guy Florida really wanted bad. And that's the thing. A lot of these guys, most of these guys that are at Alabama, Florida was in the mix on. They just couldn't pull the trigger. And you see why. And it becomes the same old story. And this is the problem with college football we're in right now. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can't order Alabama to quit recruiting well and quit having great players. You can't have a draft for college. I mean, you couldn't do that where you sat there and you said, okay, Kansas, you get the first pick in the draft. So you pick the 5-star running back that you want to come play. That doesn't work that way. These kids are choosing where to go to school. And of course, if they're football players, they're choosing to go, most of the time, if there's a recruiting battle, to Alabama. Because guess what? Alabama sends the most guys to the pros. 6 first-rounders last night. Pretty amazing. I mean, it's just the way it's going to be, and I don't know that it's going to change anytime soon. I mean, it is what it is. In the college football world we live in, you keep winning, which means you keep getting guys in the draft, and then you keep winning, and you get more guys. It's a never-ending cycle. And this goes back to, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, the talk about another expansion of the playoff that has been going on, and we'll see if that does happen. But it certainly was fun last night to watch the draft with a level of local excitement to have 2 guys. You know, I looked this up. In fact, I wrote about it in my trivia thing that I always do on Fridays for WRUF.com, the front nine, as we call it. How many know there were 11 times Florida's had 2 players picked in the first round, but there are 2 other times Florida had 3 players picked. See if you can get that. The answer, well, it's in the column, but I'll tell you here. 1989, Trace Armstrong, Lewis Oliver, and I'm blanking on the other name. And then in 2010, Tebow, Joe Hayden, and Marquise Pouncey all were first-round picks. So twice in Florida history, they've had 3 first-round picks. And then you look at the numbers at Alabama, you know, it's just crazy. 6 first-round picks. Guess what? They may have 6 again next year, or 5 or 4. They're going to have a bunch of them. And then other guys are going to want to keep going there. So this is what keeps happening. It's the way it is in college football, and that's cool. You know, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it except beat them. And when you start beating them, you're going to get all those kids. You start playing for national championships, you're going to get the kids. But right now, Alabama's going to get them every year. Oklahoma's going to get some, obviously, with the success they've had. Ohio State, certainly, with the success they have, they're going to continue to recruit well. Clemson, you know, they're in the mix every year, so they're going to continue to recruit well. And this goes back to what we're dealing with college football. So we'll see what happens. Of course, there's an awful lot going on in the sports where they play with a bat and ball as well. Big series this weekend, mighty Gators, mighty Commodores. You don't say very often, but you can say it in baseball, with their 2-star pitchers. You know, it ought to be some series. And Florida, this is so important for Florida to really play well. And again, it's not about playing well. You got to win. It's not about whether you played the game well or you pitched well but didn't hit. It's did you win the game? Because Florida probably needs to win 2 out of 3. Right now, I know the D2 site, I think, has them not hosting a regional. They're not going to host a super regional. We know that. And they're setting up permanent host sites for both baseball and softball. And even if your team doesn't make it in those sports, it's going to, or in those, in those teams, you're going to have it there. Jeff Cardozo and I have talked about this a lot because we kind of experienced that the year that Florida got to the finals in Baylor, and Baylor got to and through, and then there was nobody in the stands. And that's where you're going to have some of that. But they want to be able to sanitize every site. It's kind of what happened you saw with volleyball. So Florida kind of needs to win 2 out of 3 here because they've not really said when they're going to do it. It'll probably be in a week or 2 that they're going to set these sites for regionals and super regionals, which will stay through there. Now in softball, they did set it, but not really. I don't understand the mentality of this. If you're going to do it now with the 2 weeks left in the regular season plus the tournament, do it, okay? But don't say, here's 20 cities we're thinking about. And that's what they did. Now, not surprisingly, Florida, which is very high in RPI, I think they're 3 right now, is considered to be one of those hosts. And we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I don't think there's much question. They will be one of the hosts and probably have a chance to host Super Regional as well if they can get that far. But there's 8 SEC schools among the 20. On May 16th, they're going to announce the whole field. And then they're going to announce who are the 16 cities or 16, cities, that's what they're called, who will host the regionals and super regionals. So that'll be an interesting day as well. We got a lot coming up, including 3 things. We've got our this, that, and the other. I got a good one for you this week. Leonardo's Millhopper Quick Picks, the Friday Football Fix, tons of stuff. We got a great show today. We're going to welcome in my good friend Peter Burns right now, and then a little bit later, Tom Leach, the voice of Kentucky, is going to join us as we make our way around the SEC and continue to go to different SEC sites. Peter, how are you, young man?
Pat, I'm doing well, man. I'm trying to figure out everything that's happened in the last, it seems, 24 hours with the Florida State Legislature. I never knew I'd be this far in deep of the politics of your state, trying to figure out what in the world's going on down there.
Well, have you ever been to the state?
Many a times. One of my favorite places to places to be, for sure. It's kind of eye-opening. They went from kicking the can for name, image, and likeness to 2022 to all of a sudden telling the NCAA, hey, we're going to pass these rules, and if you don't like it, we're going to tell everybody to bail the hell out of the NCAA, it appears. Major things are afoot there in the Sunshine State.
Yeah, it has been weird, and when that came down that they were going to not pass the legislation, that everybody said, whoa, wait a minute. How can you do, if you don't do this, what about when Alabama does? What about when California does? And then obviously the coaches recruiting was going to take a big hit in the state.
Yeah, I mean, and again, Florida, remember, California was the first people to state to do it. And they said, hey, we're going to do it by 2023. That'll give Congress some time. That'll give everybody opportunity to ducks in a row. But we're going to start this momentum. And Florida was like, no, hell no. We're not waiting until 2023. Chip LaMarca and all of those guys wanted to have it in 2021. And once Florida got in, of course, everybody being competitive, especially when it comes to recruiting in the Southeast, said, well, I want to be a part of it as well, too. So, I know that there were a lot of people that I think originally, Pat, had said, why don't we take our time? Let's maybe wait. Let's pump the brakes and get a feel for this. But then when they realized the ball was rolling towards 2021, I think UCF and South Florida and Florida State says, wait, we need to jump into this now because it's going to happen. And I think coaches were using that as a recruiting tool in this last signing day to say, you need to come sign with us because we're going to be the first people to enact this. And that's why the other states followed. So now it's just, frankly, a little bit of chaos.
Yeah, and look, I'm not a get off my lawn type of guy. I understand we've all got to evolve in what we think is going to happen in college football and college sports. So I'm fine with it. But I worry sometimes that the locker room is going to be a different place than it used to be, where guys can get upset because they had a deal, an NIL deal, where if I catch 2 touchdown passes in this game, I'm going to get more from the car dealer, but the guy won't throw me the ball. So you get into it. I mean, I don't know where this is all going to end up.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's tough to find the kind of what the unintended quote consequences of it are going to be. You know, we fear what we don't understand, right? And so we don't understand how this is going to be. And we just always known college football working in certain parameters over so long that we're like, oh, we don't need to really change it. But I mean, I think we've understood that, you know, while paying players doesn't make a whole lot of sense in that model, and paying athletes, allowing them to profit off the name, image, and likeness at some point does. And I think all the coaches have come to that realization. I mean, coaches and people adapt. No different than Nick Saban 10 years ago was saying, hey, we're going to run the ball 100 times and throw it 8 times and win a game with, you know, 250 yards allowed on defense. Nick Saban evolved. Well, administrators in NCAA and in athletic departments are evolving as well, too. So, ultimately, I'm kind of curious to see, because, you know, now that the state of Florida has said, hey, if you hold us accountable for transgender laws that we passed or these name, image, and likeness laws, if you try to punish us for the laws that we did, we're going to pull out of the NCAA. Well, what prevents state of Texas going in there and going, well, how about this? We're going to one up Florida and say you can pay a recruit to come to Texas $1 million right now. And by the way, NCAA, if you decide that you're going to punish one of our Texas schools for our state law that allows it, we're out of the NCAA as well too. So again, there's just not a whole lot of coordination. That's what happens when you got 50 different states with 50 different sets of priorities. And that's why they're hoping in NCAA, and a lot of coaches are hoping that Congress hurries up and gets a uniform bill that is standard throughout all of the states.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw Mark Ebert get his contract extended, but what are the chances that we could be seeing the slow demise of the NCAA?
Well, I think we've seen it for a while. The question is, NCAA still has leverage because of a little basketball tournament they host every single year, right? I mean, they've turned that into such a everybody has grown accustomed to, sucking at the teat of the NCAA March Madness tournament for their financial budgets, especially post-COVID, that there's no other way to get that money, right? So unless somebody, honestly, Pat, came out tomorrow and said, all right, we're getting rid of the NCAA March Madness tournament and we're going to just create our own basketball tournament, and here is our $1 billion deal, the NCAA is still going to have leverage, because these schools are still, even if they can't use state funding in Florida, that means, I guarantee you, Florida State will get a booster to write the $100,000 membership check to the NCAA. So therefore, Florida State can make the X amount of millions of dollars that they get from the NCAA basketball tournament.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a complicated story. With that, we just saw the one-time transfer thing finally clear its last hurdle, which is something I think a lot of us wanted to see. But the NIL thing is, I'm not sure it's going to be settled for a long time and that kids are not going to get their money for a long time. Like you mentioned, the kids in this class who went to a school like Florida or Florida State or Miami were told, you're going to make some money off your NIL. Now you may not be able to do it.
Well, I think the schools have said, hey, we're going to pass this. State laws are coming. But when it comes down to it, are the compliance officers at these schools, who are so in tune to making sure every single one of these student athletes is, eligible, unless they have something from writing, which I'm not sure the NCAA is going to put out anything in writing right now. Mark Emmert saying, hey, I'm not going to hold anybody and punish that in a conversation, in a quote, that's one thing. But compliance still has to go by the laws of the NCAA, and the laws of the NCAA do not allow this. So we're in for just chaos here come soon. And also the transfer portal, the one-time immediate eligibility, Pat, is an interesting topic as well too, because just because it's allowed, I'm not 100% sold it will pass in the SEC. I don't know if we will have a situation outside maybe a waiver deal to where the coaches are going to allow one player to go from one school to another within the conference. So, I think everybody assumes that's going to be the case. I don't know if I'm there quite yet.
Peter Burns from the SEC Network, and of course Sirius Radio, where I listen to him a lot in the mornings, and I enjoy him with Chris Doring, two of my favorite people, two really good golfers too. Who wins between you two guys?
Well, I kick his ass. There's not. I mean, it's not anywhere close. But when his shirt's off to the pool, he's got me on that aspect because I got the dad bod going on right now.
Yeah. The sad part is I've seen his shirt off at my golf tournament. So
the best of both worlds, kind of. Maybe I don't know.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about last night, the first round of the draft, and again, the SEC just dominates. It was almost embarrassing. You're like feeling bad for some of these conferences. And at the same time, you're kind of feeling bad for everybody who's got to compete with Alabama because they get 6, and guess what? They'll have a great recruiting class the next one, and then they'll get 6 again, and then they'll have a great recruiting class. It's just a never-ending cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I joked around on Twitter last night, Pat, saying that, like, Saban was so happy because he now knows he'll never have to really ever make a recruiting pitch ever. All he'll have to do is turn on the first night of the 2021 NFL draft and go, see these guys? They just made $75 million of guaranteed money. And then that's basically the recruiting pitch anymore. Like it hums right now. It's just a well-oiled machine, and that's a credit to what he's built, not only on the field, but I think more importantly behind the scenes. And I think everybody's trying to get to that level right now. But I was so happy for Kyle Pitts. I mean, for him to go out there, we saw Dan and Meg in the draft room with them. That's a big step for Dan Mullen because we're going to more offensive football. That's the reason why he was hired in Gainesville. And for him to go out there and just go, you're going to be the next Kyle Pitts. You're going to be the next Kyle Trask that we're going to see. You're going to be the next Kadarius Toney that's a first-round draft pick. Gator fans have to love that because that was a recruiting pitch for Florida Gator football last night to have 2 skill position guys in the first round.
There's no question about it. And, obviously for LSU to see Jamar Chase, another skill guy. I mean, you look at the SEC, the big, bad, strong, physical. They've got defensive linemen that can run 4.5s. And the talent, though, the skill position talent that was drafted last night was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and go back, also look at cornerbacks as well, too, where Suzanne and J.C. Horn. And again, the idea that the SEC is going to, win these 20-17 games and it'll be 3 yards in a cloud of dust, that's just not the game. Once all of a sudden you saw Bama change, you saw Dan Mullen get there, you see Lane Kiffin over at Ole Miss, basically they said, all right, well, the Big 12 is playing that style of football. We're going to do the same exact thing just with better recruits and better coaches and better facilities. And so we're taking that game and taking it over. And therefore, what's happening is that if the whole game of college football goes that way, I think the whole NFL game goes that way. I think that's why you saw last night a lot of GMs are pairing, quarterbacks with receivers. We saw that with Tua and Jalen Waddle. We saw that with Burrow and Jamar Chase. Hell, we saw that with Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
So I think that's, we're seeing that what's happening in college football is trickling into the NFL. And frankly, I think it's kind of a cool thing.
Is there, and this is a crazy theory that I have, and I don't even believe it, okay, but is it possible that because nobody hit they didn't have a spring, they didn't hit during the fall because if you lose 2 guys to injuries and 2 guys to COVID, you could lose your entire defensive line, that maybe these offensive players looked better than they will be in the NFL? Or, I mean, I don't know that that's true.
Yeah, I think also keep in mind the NFL has changed a lot over the last 10, 15 years. Sure. Where basically you can't touch the wide receivers anymore, you can't hit them over the middle, you're protecting the quarterback. So they're trying to make the game safer because they knew, like, whenever they had to deal with the concussion issues a couple of years ago and all those lawsuits, they knew that they needed to make the game a little bit more offensive friendly, and therefore I think it's trickled down to all aspects of the sports. It used to be, hey, in high school you run this, but then you're going to learn a college offense, then you're going to learn a more complicated NFL offense. Now colleges brightened up and said, well, why the hell, if this athlete is so good playing 4A football in Florida, let's let him do that same exact thing in college. And then the NFL GM said, and coaches said, well, if that guy's so good in college, I'm not going to try to make him learn some 57-page playbook and all these concepts. Let's just do what he does on the collegiate level. So, the game's always changing. I just think I can't see it ever reverting back because it's more fun to see more points right now. I mean, Ole Miss wasn't a good football team last year, but everybody talks about them because they scored a bajillion points. Tennessee's doing the same thing with Josh Heupel running that offense. And so, I think now we're seeing, hey, if you're not going to be good, at least, score a bunch of points, and then people won't care as much.
Yeah, before I let you go, Peter, and it's always great talking to you, I want to get your take on what is going on with baseball and softball in terms of getting these permanent host sites, because for the obvious reasons, but that you could end up with a team losing in its regional and then hosting a super regional without them being there. And obviously you're not going to have big crowds, but it's just there's no other way to do it? Or do you think that maybe it's too much?
It's survived. Yeah, I think it's survived in advance at this point. The NCAA says we don't want to just pick random places. We want to have some type of rhyme or reason, and we're taking our best estimated guess of who deserves a regional site. On top of that, what places can, due to state and local regulations, allow to have at least 50% capacity at these venues. And they're hoping to hit as many as possible. And, if there are situations where, hey, there's a regional at Duty Noble Field at Mississippi State, but the Bulldogs aren't in it, the NCAA will probably be like, hey, at least we did our best. So, I think we're all trying to tread water until we can get back probably maybe to fall, to where we feel like everything's going to be at least somewhat returned back to normal like pre-COVID.
Yeah. What do you think? I'm just curious what you think your take is on packed stadiums, because that's the plan. Everybody's planning on it, but you can always back away from it. But let's just say we keep advancing the way we have, and it comes to the fall. Do you think you'll see packed stadiums? Packed stadiums.
Yeah, I will. I don't even know if COVID ever existed in the state of Florida, from what people tell me down there sometimes.
It did in my house. We were all scared.
Yeah, I think everybody says we're going to plan for 100% capacity, because guess what? They got to get in touch with season ticket holders to get their money right now, right? And they can always back that down.
Right.
And then ultimately, I think it'll come down to, all right, are they going to say, do you need to be vaccinated, or, hey, do you need to sign a waiver to go in? I'm not quite sure how that plays, but I would say at a bare minimum will be at least 75% capacity. And we may relook at the way that entry's done into the into the stadiums, and ordering online rather than staying in line for concessions. But they'll evolve, because money always evolves. They always find a way to make a dollar, and college athletics is not going to be any different.
Peter, is there anything you need to plug? The radio, the TV, you got a book coming out?
Shirtless Chris Doring every single morning on Sirius XM, even though it's radio. But now we've been having a lot of fun, and this is my favorite time of year, right? When we get to talk to Sully, we get to talk to Tim Walton and what's going on, and hopefully we're in Omaha. I know we'll be covering SEC baseball in tournament on location for softball and baseball, so that was a big development this week. Still waiting to hear about Omaha. But Media Days appears to be a go for us, which is going to be great. Fingers crossed. And hopefully we're yelling at each other on air between LSU and Florida bets between me and Doring sometime soon.
That'll be fun. Always a lot of fun to listen to you. I listen to you guys every morning, and then to see you on TV. And I really appreciate you coming on the podcast for the second time. You're a good man, Peter Burns.
Anything for you, Pat. Talk to you soon, bud.
All right, Peter Burns joining us, and we appreciate him for joining us. We're going to have Tom Leach as we go around the SEC in just a little bit. But first, it is time for Three Things. Three Things presented by Hand Law, Florida law firm which helps clients with government. You can learn more about Hand Law by visiting its website at www.hand.law. Which would be the end of that. Let me do that one again. www.hand.law. There you go. The firm is available for consultation in Jacksonville. We appreciate them sponsoring Three Things. We'll start out with number one. Did Aaron Rodgers get traded? What happened? What is the deal there? That rumor just came out of nowhere as a big deal, and then nothing happened. But it apparently is going to happen, and that's what everybody's saying, that they're going to trade him to the Broncos, and I don't know how to feel about that because I like Aaron Rodgers, and it has made me like Green Bay. And look, a lot of it goes to my friend Nick Gillum, who's a big Packers fan. A lot of it goes to the fact that I had a Packers shirt that I really loved that I bought in Omaha because we were there 16 days, and I went to a store and just bought whatever was cheap, and it was a Green Bay shirt, and that I had him on a fantasy team that was really good. And for some reason, I kind of became a Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers fan. But am I that big an Aaron Rodgers fan that I'll root for him with the Broncos? I don't know. I don't think I'll do that. It's going to be interesting to see. Look, we all know, and I think we all understand, quarterback is the most important position now, more important than it's ever been in the NFL and in college. And everybody's got to have one. But just watching all the changes that have been made, all the draft, it's going to be the most fascinating NFL season, I think, in the history of the game. I'm looking forward to it. Number 2 on 3 things presented by Hand Law. Lance Leopold is now the coach of Kansas. And you probably have not heard of Lance Leopold. He was at Buffalo, but before that he was at Wisconsin Whitewater, won a couple of national championships there. I've seen many an interview with him, and I remember that when McElwain got fired, I go, I don't think Florida would be gutsy enough to go hire Lance Leopold, but I would love it. He seems like a really good guy and a really good coach. So now he's going to Kansas where you can't win. It's impossible. You can't. I mean, I know Mark Mangini did it. It was a different time. I'm not sure anybody else can win there. But if anybody can, it will be Lance Leopold. I actually will find myself rooting for Kansas football. There's something about him. I just liked him. And number 3 on, of course, 3 things presented by Hand Law. How about Brian Shelton getting the Coach of the Year in the SEC? Congratulations. Of course, regular season champs. He's the best in the business and really has done a great job of elevating that program, because they were kind of like second fiddle to the women's program for a long time, and even they were having a hard time, and he came in and really changed things there. So excited about that, and we're looking forward to see what happens with them in the NCAA tournament as well. So we still got that going on. All right, we got to get a break. We're running a little bit late. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk to Tom Leach, the voice of Kentucky. We'll talk to him about football, and maybe we'll get a few Kentucky Derby questions in. What about that? Think about that. I think it's Saturday, right? The Derby? Yeah, I believe it is. All right, so we'll ask him some about that as well. You're watching another duly noted podcast. We'll be right back.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
You can get your favorite alcoholic brands from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits delivered right to your door. ABC Delivers is available in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and all of the Southeast Florida. Earn ABC points for coupons and free bottles through abcdelivers.com. It's powered by FedEx Same Day City, and you're going to love the price. Free with a $50 purchase for the first 7 miles. So wine, spirits, beer, and everything you need to celebrate. Get it delivered. Shop abcdelivers.com. This is Pat Dooley, and I want to tell you about my friends at the Gainesville Quarterback Club. I'm a member, and you should be too. It's the oldest Gator booster club in the world and a great place to meet new friends, network with prominent business people, and hear a great collection of speakers, including Dan Mullen, throughout the football season. Go ahead and give John Stevens a call at 352-222-8516 or sign up on the website, quarterbackclub.org. Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317
888-838-3444.
All right, welcome back to another Dooley Noted podcast, and it's a great pleasure right now to be joined by Tom Leach, the voice of Kentucky, and of course the author of the Leach Report, and does a great job, knows Kentucky better than anybody, and I often go on his report as well during the football season. I'm curious what the level of excitement is right now up in Lexington about this football team, because it feels like they're going to be pretty good this year.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of buzz. Started with the bowl game because the season got off to an 0-2 start, and then their COVID issues hit about the time they had to face Alabama and Florida, unfortunately. And so they were really up against it there. And so finished with a big win over an outman South Carolina team. But when they went down and won the bowl game, it created a little excitement. And then they're recruiting really well, and they went and hired a new offensive coordinator, and that always energizes a fan base, either a new quarterback or a new offensive coordinator. Kentucky will have both, and that's created a lot of excitement. And Liam Cohen comes in from the NFL, so that even adds to the buzz, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about their quarterback situation, because we just witnessed how important the quarterback situation is to the NFL. We know it's important in college. And if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance, is the kind of the way people talk. What do you think it's going to look like next year or this year?
I would say at the moment, Joey Gatewood would, here on this Kentucky Oaks and Derby weekend in Kentucky, Joey Gatewood would be the morning line favorite right now off a good spring practice. And really this goes back to the practices leading up to the bowl game. He separated a little bit from Bo Allen at that time. Bo, his dad played here in the 80s, and he was a true freshman last season, so Joey's a little older, has played more college football, and came in, of course, from Auburn prior to last season as a transfer. And both got very limited action last season, but in the practices between the end of the season and the bowl game, the word I had gotten was that Joey had created a little separation, and I think that's really where they are. It's not a big gap, but Joey, I think, is ahead. But they have added a transfer from Penn State, Will Levis, who was a backup there for the Nittany Lions. And it was a player that Liam Cohen wanted to go out and get when he came to add to depth in their quarterback room. And so he wasn't able to get here for spring practice. So he comes in, I guess, next month or in June, technically. And then we'll see if he can make a run at winning the starting job. I would have to think they'd make that determination pretty early to give whoever is going to start the majority of the reps.
I mean, I'm sure you know that this team has got to find a way to be able to throw the ball. They're almost what Florida was back in the Skylar Morningway, Tyler Murphy days, where they just couldn't throw it in the Will Muschamp era. But they've got to find a way to be able to throw it to keep teams off balance. And if they can do that, I mean, this team has a chance to be really something.
As well as they run the football, and as good as their offensive line play has been consistently, they ought to be able to throw it with the attention opponents should have to pay to the run game. So, the 16 team, the first bowl season for Mark, they were kind of like the old Raiders teams of the 70s in that they ran the ball tremendously well and then threw deep off play action. And they had a kid from Florida, Gary Johnson, who could get deep, and Jeff Badette, who after that season transferred to Oklahoma, and he could get deep. And they had success throwing deep balls off play action to them. But their passing game has really kind of gone steadily downhill since those guys left. And they really had, in Josh Ali last season, a solid SEC receiver, and then really nobody else that had done anything to scare anybody. And so now they've brought in Wan'Dale Robinson, who was a kid from nearby in Frankfurt, grew up in Frankfurt, played high school football in Kentucky, about 30 minutes from the UK campus, went to Nebraska. So after 2 years, he's back, and he should give them more of a home run threat, a little bit of a Percy Harvin angle there, and that he's exceptionally fast. They can, get it to him in space and hand it to him. But they need somebody that can get deep, and then somebody that can hit them when they do get open. And they, if they can do that, they would have a chance to have a really good team. What I've told people that have asked me is, I think they'll be good. How much above good they can get will be determined by how good the quarterback play is.
Yeah, absolutely. But, one thing that they'll have good defense. I mean, Mark Stoops has done a remarkable job. Just had another first-round draft pick last night. I mean, I'm sure he's got somebody raring to go that's going to be a potential first-round draft pick again this year.
Yeah, it might be Josh Paschal, the young man that had dealt with a cancer situation.
Right.
Came back from that late in the 19 season and got on the field late in the year. And then, last season was solid, but they didn't have much of a pass rush game last season. And if they want to get that back into their defense, they were solid defensively, but they want to get better at rushing the passer. And he's a guy that maybe could do that for them. And they've built a lot of depth now. The kid that got drafted last night, Jamin Davis, was a star in a spring game a couple of years ago, but never could work his way onto the field because of the people that were ahead of him. And then they had a young man that was had a serious medical condition that opened the door for Jamin to play, and he plays his way into the first round. And, we were talking about this on my local radio show this morning, that if you're Kentucky and you aspire to be where Florida, Georgia, Alabama, those teams are consistently in this league, that's the way it's supposed to work, that there are people that nobody's heard of that are as good or better than the people that are playing. And Kentucky's at least getting closer to that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I know it's been hard for them to kind of get over a little bit of a hump. I mean, a lot of people feel like there is a ceiling there that Kentucky can't seem to break through. Certainly beating Florida a couple of years ago, it looked like, okay, that's over with. But then the next thing you know, Kyle Trask comes off the bench to beat them, which they must just, when they see the Gators walk through that door, they must go, how is this one going to end? We have no idea. It could be Dorian's got a touchdown. It could be Jared Lorenzen throwing the ball up for grabs. You never know.
Yeah, it's was that way with the Tennessee series for a long time too. They've had a little more success against the Vols lately. They got the one against the Gators. Haven't broken through against Georgia lately, but that's the next spot on the hill for them. I mean, you get to a spot, I think, in this league, or we'll talk just within this division, that if you're at the bottom where they were when Mark got here, you first get past Vandy, and then you get past that next group of teams where you're at the top of that next tier of Missouri and South Carolina and probably Tennessee, and then you have Florida and Georgia up there. And if you can get to the top of that second tier and stay there, which is hopefully Kentucky's there at this point, then you've got to work on how do you break through and beat Florida more than once every 30 years and Georgia. So that's the next challenge. And the thing is, they have done amazing in getting to this point as a staff, but just because you've gotten to this point doesn't mean the next jump's going to happen anytime soon. I mean, it could take a while to really break through to that next level. Maybe occasionally you do it, but that they'll have to balance out with the fan base probably those years when you still can't quite break through, but you still have a good team. And hopefully one of those years you do break through. And Kentucky, I think the next thing that Kentucky fans have circled on their wish list is getting to the SEC championship game, which Kentucky's never done. And they were playing for a spot in it in 2018 and lost to Georgia. So they aspire to get back in that position and then do something with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. They can see the top of the mountain. Before they couldn't even see it.
Yeah.
Now they can see it. It's just, can they go those last steps to the top of it? But it certainly is going to be an interesting season to watch them play. But I do want to ask you a real quick question about basketball. I mean, obviously nobody saw that coming, what we all saw last year. And I'm sure that everybody's convinced this was a aberration, COVID aberration. Calipari just he couldn't get through to these guys, and that things will get back to normal next year.
There's some of that, but you look what Cal has done, and it seems clear that with some of the recruiting decisions he's making, particularly with players they're bringing in as transfers, and you got a little change up in the coaching staff, that it certainly looks like he views that season as more than just an outlier or an aberration related to COVID. Certainly that was a big part of it, because when you're as new, they were as new as they've ever been at the worst possible time. The only guy they had with any meaningful experience was Keon Brooks, and then he didn't get to play until the game down in Gainesville in January. So they were almost completely new at a time when you didn't get all the off-season work together and bonding and so forth that typically is part of that rapid integration program for bringing new players in for Calipari. So getting back to some normalcy will help. But, I think in the last radio show I did with him after the season ended, he talked about, I can't remember the exact phrasing, but it was along the lines of the ground is shifting beneath us, and we've got to recognize this change that is happening, and, certain skills that we didn't value as much previously, we need to maybe put a higher value on, like the kid they brought in from Davidson and others they're looking at that can put more shooters on the floor than they, I think, have typically done under Cal.
Before we let you go, we see all these great pictures in the background. We got to know if you've got a winner for us in the Derby, because I don't know, is it soup and sandwich? Is it there's some weird names this year.
Yeah, and there always are. I ended up, unfortunately, it's chalk. I ended up on a horse, Essential Quality, who's the morning line favorite. There's a horse called Rock Your World at second choice, but might end up being the third choice. And it's been a coin flip all week between those two for me, and I ended up settling on Essential Quality. Rock Your World is the more, John Wall type. He's only had 3 starts, but he's shown amazing talent. Essential Quality is a little bit more of a veteran. So I ended up leaning to the veteran, which seems to be how it's going in college basketball right now. But I kind of think it's one of those two, but you won't get rich betting either one of them.
Do you think these horses know anything about COVID? Do you think that they're running around, they're going, hey, where are all the people?
Yeah, they probably, I wouldn't think, any animal is attuned to its surroundings, so they at least notice differences. And so there's supposed to be probably somewhere around 40 or 50,000. Churchill Downs is a massive physical plant, so they can keep people separated and still have a lot of them there. So it'll look a little closer to normal, certainly, than it did last year when it was just weird with nobody there but the horses and a few humans.
Tom, we really appreciate your time, man, and good luck with the Derby and the Oaks and everything else. This is a cool time to be up there. I'm sure the weather is perfect right now.
It finally is. We've had rain on this weekend before, up until last year, about 5-6 years in a row, and so the last 2 years it's been very nice. So looking forward to enjoying a more of an idyllic Kentucky Derby weekend here in Kentucky, and hopefully we'll keep some of that weather around for when the Gators come in. There
you go. Tom Leach, the voice of Kentucky, and we appreciate his time so much as we take our tour around the SEC. Monday we'll be talking about LSU, as we'll be talking to, I think, Scott Rabelais, but I got to set that up yet. Right now we got to take a break, and then we'll come back with more of another Dooley Noted podcast. Don't forget, we've got the quick picks coming up. We've got this, that, and the other. We've got the Adams Ribco Gator of the Week, and we've got the Friday Football Fix. All that and more on another Dooley Noted podcast. You can get your favorite alcoholic brands from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits delivered right to your door. ABC Delivers is available in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and all of the Southeast Florida. Earn ABC points for coupons and free bottles through abcdelivers.com. It's powered by FedEx Same Day City, and you're going to love the price. Free with a $50 purchase for the first 7 miles. So wine, spirits, beer, and everything you need to celebrate. Get it delivered. Shop abcdelivers.com.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube, or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. Okay, and welcome back again. Thank you so much to Peter Burns for joining us and to Tom Leach as we make our way around the SEC. Good stuff from both of them. And Monday, I think we're going to have Dallas Baker on Monday, and then we'll get Scott Rabelais on, hopefully, to talk a little LSU. We'll just keep going around the SEC, and I hope you guys are enjoying that part of it because everybody likes to talk football, right? All right, so let us go to the, obviously, Leonardo's at Millhopper, quick picks. And you guys, I will say this, I don't know how many people qualify, but I know I think more people get in the contest this week than we've ever had. I've got to get with my pen out once Kyle Trask gets drafted. I still don't know who made it, who didn't, but a lot of people are going to qualify, and that's good because the more input we have, the more we think you guys like it. So we're going to go pretty simple again, okay? Because that seems to attract the people who listen or watch the show, and also the people when I post it on Facebook and also on what's the other thing? Facebook and Twitter. I totally blanked out. Okay, so I'll post that as soon as we get done with the show today. But it's going to be very simple. Florida, Vandy. Who do you got for the 3-game series? You got Florida or Vandy. I mean, one of them's got to win. Now, if they tie 1-1, you all qualify. How about that? If they could rain out Sunday's game, but I don't think that's going to happen. It's a huge series for Florida. I talked about this earlier, how important it is for them to at least to get the 2 out of 3. You can't win 2 games tonight. And you might not win 2 games because they're obviously throwing 2 unbelievable pitchers at you. But if Florida can find a way to do that, that will help them get to host that first round of the regionals. They're going to have to travel no matter what for the super regionals, and that's fine. I mean, just don't let Jack Leftwich pitch because he can't pitch on the road. Let him pitch at home, though. I'll be curious to see if he comes in to see the game tonight or tomorrow night and at home in a tight game and see how he pitches, because obviously on the road he's just a different person. So that is a very easy Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks. Florida and Vandy, who do you have for this weekend series? You know, you basically have a good amount of time to get the game. First game's not till 7 o'clock on Friday night, and even if you get in after that, I'm not a stickler for that. You know me, pretty easy to deal with. And thanks so much to Kyle over at Leonardo's, not only for being a sponsor here, but being a sponsor of our golf tournament. And he's agreed to supply pizzas for the Friday night little soiree we're going to have. No big, I mean, we're not having a big party. We used to, but we still, I don't think people are that comfortable having a huge, giant blowout party. We're just going to have a couple of beers and a couple of great Leonardo's pizzas, and we appreciate him so much. All right, now, speaking of food, it's time for the Adams Ribco Gator of the Week. Went by there today, actually. They're open now, up over there on 43rd and 53rd, back there where the Goodwill and the Yo3 Metro are. They are open for to-go orders, and you should see the place. The decorations they've done are unbelievable. They got merchandise, so we appreciate Adam. We're going to get him as soon as he gets calmed down from opening a new store. We're going to do a commercial with him as well. So the Adams Ribco Gator of the Week is Kadarius Toney. And here's why. Kadarius Toney didn't have to come back this year, but he knew that Florida was going to get the ball in his hands and it would help him up his stock. I don't know that he knew that he would be a first-round draft pick. I didn't think he was going to be a first-round draft pick. I thought he was a great player, and I still think he's a great player. They did really good some things. Some people put out bad draft stuff on him, bad information on him, because he did have a little bit of trouble in college, but it wasn't that big a deal for the most part. I mean, he had a legal handgun. There's no ill there. It's legal handgun on him, and I personally don't like it when players are going around with handguns, because you never know what kind of trouble you can get, but maybe he felt he was protected. I don't know. It was legal, though. That was one of his offenses. But the bottom line is, there were a lot of teams that were high on him, and certainly all you need is one to draft you in the first round. But so that is why the main reason he is our Gator of the Week is because he came back and he did what I like to see some guys do. All right, you may get drafted in the third round. Are you ready to go pro? Then go pro. It's fine. I got no problem with it. But you might be smart to come back and do this and be better and get stronger and get faster, and then let the offense showcase him. And boy, he could not have picked a better year to come back for your senior year. Of course, you only had one choice, but to come back for your senior year, the year when nobody played defense all around the country. He and Kyle Pitts shined. And so did all kinds of receivers around this conference. It was a pretty incredible year for offense. All right, so he is our Adams Ribco Gator of the Week, and I'm curious to see who the Gator of the Weekend is going to be, because we got a lot going on between baseball, softball. There's other things going on. I could have made it Tyson Alexander. I even thought about doing that, who won on the Korn Ferry Tour, but he won all the way back Sunday, so he really wasn't Gator of the Week. I forgot to mention that last week, and we were texting. It's so funny. I texted Tyson and congratulated him and everything, and he said, sent me back, hey, thanks, appreciate it. And he said, one question, who's it going to be, Emory Jones or Anthony Richardson? I'm like, so we got into a text to me, let me tell him what I think about this, that, and the other. And this is a good segue for this, that, and the other, isn't it? Let's go to this, that, and the other. And again, congratulations to Tyson. All right, this, that, and the other, sponsored by Ballyhoo Grill, where I'm heading as soon as I walk out of here. Love that place. Darshackow Insurance. They do a great job as well in Ironwood Golf Course. Of course, Ironwood also the sponsor of our text line. If you want to get something in at 600-2300, if you got any questions for me. This, that, and the other. Okay, to this. And you guys know how we do this. This, that, and the other. This. The Big 12 decided to play football this year. They decided, and they were in it with the SEC. The SEC might have been going it by itself, if not for the Big 12. And for that, we thank you, Big 12. So the SEC didn't look like they were outliers. And I give them a lot of credit. And they actually had some really good teams in that conference. In fact, I think they ended up with 4 in the final top 20. So that's this. We were fans of the Big 12 this year for doing that. So that is it didn't work out too well. Oklahoma lost 2 of its first 3 games, and that kind of ended any hopes, and it just kept getting worse. Iowa State had that terrible loss in its opener. It just didn't work out, so they get no teams in the playoff. In fact, they didn't even have a team in the top 5. You have to be in the top 4. They didn't even get one in the top 5. And in a league that is totally all about offense, everybody was about offense, and they only played each other, and it just kind of cannibalized each other. So that was that. And then the other came last night, when the same number of players that have been drafted from my family in the NFL were drafted in the first round of the Big 12, for the Big 12. None. 0. 0.0. There's no way to go through life. And I feel bad, and now everybody's kind of having their way with them, because nobody had 0 players drafted from a power conference since 2006. That conference was the Big East. It's not even a power conference anymore. It was a power conference for like an hour when they had Miami in it, right? I mean, I'm trying to remember what 06 Big East looked like. Anyway, they ain't anybody drafted that year either. But no other Power 5 conference had been, so the other was not a good night for the Big 12. And I feel bad for them, because I do appreciate them coming on board and helping out with having a good football season, but not a great night for them. All right, finally, because we're almost out of time, our Friday football fix which we're still looking for a sponsor. That's the one thing we're still looking for a sponsor for. If anybody wants to get in touch with me at 317-3444, be happy to let you know what that is entails. The Friday football fix is this. We saw last week where they came out and they announced this playoff possibilities, that they had 68 or whatever it was scenarios that they'd worked on. I don't care about that. I don't care how many you have. I just don't. What I care is, are you going to do one of them? Don't be fooled by the smokescreen that they like to throw out there with Bill Hancock, who's the nicest guy in the world and has the worst job. It's not the worst job. You know, if you're up on a roof right now, you know, that's a bad job. I know people have to do it or you don't have roofs. I get it. But being the head of the spokesperson for the college football playoff is not the worst job in the world. But it's a hard job because you have to keep telling stories that aren't necessarily true, but you still have something you have to push. You have to push this agenda, and that's the way it is. So, and he's the nicest guy in the world. But you never know when they're setting up a smokescreen. And everybody's got their perfect playoff scenario. It's this, it's this. It's 6 teams with this, it's 8 teams with this. But I'm just going to tell you my only opinion on this, because I'm looking forward to if they do this. I think it's a load of crap to say that the games won't matter as much. I think they're way wrong on that. And I could talk about it for hours. But the one thing I will say is, I don't want it to see it be conference champions only. If you're an 8-4 conference champion, I don't want you in the playoff. I want it to still be the 8 best teams. I don't think it has to guarantee the Power 5. What power do the Group of 5, what power do the Group of 5 have? Oh, if you don't have this playoff, we're not going to participate. Then don't. See ya. We'll just have it among the teams that are always in it anyway. But I still would just rather have them pick the 8 best teams. That's what a playoff should be, not conference champions and, you know, the 8 best teams play it all. That's my opinion. I've been wrong before. But what I'm not wrong about is it's the weekend for me, and I look forward to you guys. I'm going to go down and see my daughter this weekend up down in Orlando, Jennifer. Can't wait to see her and try to have a nice, relaxing weekend. I might not even pay attention to the draft this weekend. I'll pay a little attention tonight, and I will pay attention to Gator baseball and softball. We'll be back Monday with a brand new show, and appreciate Evan for doing such a great job again. Thanks to all of our sponsors, especially our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI. We'll be back with another show Monday. Until then, I am Pat Dooley. I'm deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.